What if I told you that No Country for Old Men could be perfectly explained by one passage in the Bible, and that it fit so perfectly it almost seemed intentional by the Coen brothers? To show you what I mean, I'll play you an exchange that takes place between Sheriff Bell and Cousin Ellis at the end of the film.
What you got ain't nothing new. This country's hard on people. You can't stop what's coming. It ain't all waiting on you. That's vanity.
If you regularly read the Bible, you might already know the passage I'm about to say. And that is Ecclesiastes 1, 2 through 11, one of the most famous Bible passages of all time. For the uninitiated, it's a meditation by King Solomon on the meaninglessness of life due to its cyclical and temporary nature. And when you break it down line by line, you can't help but notice the connections it has to the imagery, motifs, and philosophy of No Country for Old Men. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? We obviously just heard Cousin Ellis say, "It ain't all waiting on you." That's vanity. That's our first connection of many to these verses. But there's another connection to these first few lines that's more subtle, and once you notice it, you can't stop noticing it. And that is this golden yellowish color that seems to saturate the lighting, costumes, and set design of No Country for Old Men. Llewellyn, for example, is shown constantly with yellow shirts, cowboy hats, and jackets. When he goes back to his mobile home, the interiors are so yellow it nearly burns your eyes out. And this is true for many other sets and characters in this movie, like Sheriff Bell and Carson Wells, and even Carla Jean at times. But the best proof of this is in the lighting and color grading of this movie. If the sun is up in No Country for Old Men, there is basically a yellow tint to all the shots. Big deal, Tom. It's just the desert. Okay, let's go to night then. In countless shots, streetlights give off this orange glow, and whole buildings are illuminated with this yellow light in a way that doesn't seem energy efficient. Not to mention the countless moments when characters are bathed in orange light in bed, driving down the road, running away in a gunfight, or trying to cross the border into Mexico covered in blood. I think there's lots of different things that are going on here with this lighting. The most practical reason for it is that it just makes stuff look really old, like old photos from the 70s or something. And that ties into the themes of No Country for Old Men. It could also represent old ideas and ways of looking at the world. It's no mistake that Anton Chigurh wears black the whole movie, which stands in stark contrast to the golds and yellows of this world. Anton, as we know, looks at the world in a very binary way, and nothing showcases this more than the infamous coin toss scene. One part that stands out to me is this exchange right here.
You lived here all your life?
This was my wife's father's place originally.
You married into it?
That's the way you want to put it.
Well, it doesn't have some way to put it. That's the way it is.
This perfectly shows the difference between Anton and everybody else in this movie. Anton deals in absolutes. There is no ambiguity or different ways of looking at things in his world. It either is or it isn't. Later in the movie, Carson Wells says this about him.
He's a peculiar man. You might even say he has principles that transcend money or drugs or anything like that.
You see, us humans want to understand the meaning of everything. Sheriff Bell represents this longing for meaning better than anyone else in the film. In the opening monologue, he says,
I don't want to push my chips forward and go out and meet something I don't understand.
Another way of looking at this gold color theme is through the lens of the lies that humanity tells itself about our own nature. Almost like we're looking at things through rose-colored glasses, or with this golden tint that obscures the black reality that we all know to be true deep down. That sometimes you can't explain things. Sometimes evil just is. Like the killer of the 14-year-old girl that Sheriff Ed Bell talks about at the start of the movie. He said there was no passion to what he'd done at all. He knew he wanted to kill somebody, and he was waiting to do so for as long as he could remember. The gold colors that are seen in the sets, costume, lighting, and color grading could represent not just this old world, but old ways of thinking, where everything makes sense. Where God, who is often depicted as rays of golden light in old paintings and such, watches over all. This goes in contrast to the cold, meaningless nature of Anton Chigurh, who is represented in black. I said this gold yellowish tint connects to this first verse. Here's where. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? Two things here. One, I think that this golden hue actually represents the sun, and I'll talk more about that later. Second, this is a perfect encapsulation of Sheriff Bell, who has worked his whole life to make an impact on this world, and by the time he's done, the world looks no better. In fact, it looks even worse than it did when he got started. What does a man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The opening of No Country for Old Men is of a sun slowly rising over a Texas landscape. They could have just shot a bunch of landscapes in broad daylight, and it probably would have had a similar effect. Why show the sun rising here? Because it seems that the Coen brothers might actually be connecting this verse back to their film intentionally. When Llewellyn gets caught by the cartels in the middle of the desert, we see the sun slowly rise as he runs away from them and dives into the river. We see the sun rising and setting a few other times in this movie, like when Anton finds Llewellyn's motel, or when the sun rises in Mexico after the mariachi band sings Volar sin alas to an injured Llewellyn. A generation goes and a generation comes, the verse says. Cousin Ellis tells a story about how Uncle Mac was gunned down on his own front porch in 1909, a generation gone. Carla Jean's mother dies and is shown being lowered into the ground. Llewellyn gets gunned down by cartel members off screen, robbing the audience of the closure we deserved. And Sheriff Bell works for decades, retires, and is headed to the grave himself. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. As I analyzed this movie, I was shocked to see that air kept coming up again and again and again, like the windmill in the opening montage of the movie, or the airy, musicless soundtrack, or the compressed air gun that Anton uses to kill people, or the name of Llewellyn's trailer park, or the air vents that Llewellyn hides the briefcase in, or this weird happy air sign that shows up behind the cashier who married into his family business. There's also other touches, like how Uncle Mac gets shot through the lung and dies, or how Anton chokes out the police officer, depriving him of air at the start of the movie, or the open window at Carla Jean's house that's letting the breeze in, or how Llewellyn stoops down to look under his door, and all we hear is air rushing into his room from underneath of it. I really think there's something to it because there's a lot of fascinating implications that make sense for this story. For one, air and wind are pretty chaotic, right? We often hear folks in movies say, look at what just blew in. Like, look at this unexpected thing that just came our way. This movie, among many other things, is about fate. Anton tells the cashier that,
You know what date is on this coin? No. 1958. It's been traveling 22 years to get here. And now it's here.
much has been said about Anton being the personification of fate, and fate, by definition, is unforeseeable. Many times this movie centers on whether we see Anton Chigurh. He asked the accountant,
Do you see me?
He tells the boys who give him their shirt,
You didn't see me. I was already gone.
Carson finds out Llewellyn saw Anton Chigurh and immediately says,
You've seen him. Man, you're not dead.
The corporate dude hires Carson Wells because apparently he's one of the only hitmen, or the only hitman, that actually saw Anton Chigurh in person. And what else can't you see? Air. Out in the West, you see killer tornadoes, or air as a force of nature, tearing through towns and leaving nothing but destruction in its wake. It's emotionless, and it doesn't happen for any reason. It's just nature. Anton, as this emotionless, supernatural force of nature that you can't see coming, works with this air and wind motif, which is why he can barge into Corporate Man's office and gun him down in broad daylight, despite the fact that Corporate Man has a crystal ball on his desk. These are all valid perspectives, but what connects back to this passage the most is the windmill that we see at the start of the movie and on Cousin Ellis's property. It is a perfect representation of this verse. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. With a windmill, we literally see this cyclical nature of air in action as it blows the mill around and around and around. Cycles are everywhere in No Country for Old Men. It's kind of crazy, actually. Llewellyn steals the money from this deal gone wrong site, goes home, and then comes back to it again. He checks into a motel over and over and over again. He runs around in Texas, escapes to Mexico, and then comes back to Texas. He goes into the same boot shop twice. Anton goes back to the very scenes where he committed his crimes. Llewellyn sits on his couch, and then Anton sits on that same spot, and then Sheriff Bell sits in that same spot. It's all a cycle. We as human beings are trapped in an endless cycle, which is what this story shows again and again and again. And that's precisely what Ecclesiastes 1, 2 through 11 is all about. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness, a man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What meaning is there to be found in these endless cycles that we live out? If all that we do in life can't change human nature, then every bad thing that's happening now will continue to happen in the future as well. What meaning does our life have then? Like Cousin Ellis says, you can't stop what's coming. It ain't all waiting on you. We will always want more power, more money, more drugs, more experiences. Around and around and around we go. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. I mentioned earlier that there was a clear golden color motif that ran throughout the spine of this movie, and that it connected to the sun somehow. Well, this is how. The Coen brothers, perhaps, were trying to show that everything we're seeing on frame is nothing new. There is nothing new under the sun. Despite the fact that Sheriff Bell might blame money or drugs or not saying sir or ma'am for the development of this new world he can't understand, the Coen brothers remind us in every golden shot, under every orange street lamp these characters bathe themselves in, that this is, in fact, nothing new. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. Thanks so much for watching this video. What patterns did you see in No Country for Old Men? I would love to hear about them. And if you want, subscribe to this YouTube channel to get more film analysis just like this one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.